and also in developing business partners that we are attracting to our specific program, our opportunity in network marketing. You know, in looking at some of the articles in this big folder that I have, here's Danielle Kennedy writing about transforming objections into opportunities. And you can clearly see there that there's a lot of attitude that has to do with that topic of transforming objections into opportunities. Here's an article out of Sales Success. It's called Objections Overruled. Here's another article that says 7 steps to overcoming even the toughest objections. Yes, I believe that there are degrees to how tough different objections are. Another article is called How to Sell Seminar, Overcoming Rejections and Objections. Another article is entitled How to Handle Price Objections. That's for a specific objection. 3 easy steps to overcome the price of objection. Listening through objections. Now here's an interesting article called Eliminating Objections, and I'm not so sure that we in fact are able to eliminate objections because we're not in control of that. The prospect that we're dealing with certainly can raise objections. We need to overcome them. We need to know how to deal with them, but I just don't understand how we can eliminate them. Another article in a magazine, and this is called How to Overcome Objections, a simple 2-part process. Another article called Overcoming the 6 Most Common Objections. And so various objections are identified for various industries. I'm sure that a realtor has a specific set of objections that he or she must deal with when he's out there trying to get a listing on a home that someone wants to sell. I know that in the auto industry there are certain objections that keep surfacing, and one must, as a prudent salesperson, learn how to deal with those objections. Oh, Thomas S. Monson, a great educator that I follow and read a lot of his work, he made this quotation. He said, "When the time for performance has come, the time for preparation is past." You know, it would really serve us well if we were to identify the 15 or 20, and it might even be closer to just 15, okay, of the most common objections that we are likely to deal with when we are in the prospecting mode, and in the follow-up mode, and the presentation mode of teaching people and selling people about our products and about our opportunities. And if we identify those, then we prepare on how to overcome, on how to deal with, on how to teach the contact or the prospect what is accurate about the objection that they might be throwing at us. But when you're in the opportunity of sharing your product or your opportunity with other people, and the time for performance is come, in other words, you have to talk about it, then obviously the time for preparation is past. My suggestion is that you would indeed, during your self-development time that you set aside each day, that you would indeed start to work on the various objections that you know you would have to deal with when you're working in the business and network marketing. And then, as you get a list of them together and possible responses that you might give, because there are certainly 4 or 5 different ways that you can overcome the same objection, then it might even be wise for you to do, let's say you get 15 of them. If you go through those on a rotating basis, that means that you will cover one objection a day, and you will cover that objection twice during the month. You know, if you did that for a 6-month period of time, that means that you were to review each of the objections 12 times in that 6-month period of time. You made it a specific 6-month goal to learn to handle those 15 top objections. Then, of course, your ability would skyrocket in terms of how you're able to deal with the contact with those specific objections. And I would promise you that you would have more success in sponsoring people because you are prepared to deal with the various objections that come your way. I was reading in an article that came from Inc. magazine. The cover story is Sell Baby Sell. So this article is the cover article, and the issue, Inc. magazine, this particular issue is devoted to the topic of selling. And in one particular article, they had 10 hot tips. And one of the hot tips that was given was learn to love objections. Now, folks, just how that is positioned to us, once again, it addresses the attitude that we have in dealing with objections. We certainly cannot moan about the objections that come our way and think that, oh, no, here comes another objection. Why isn't this prospect just laying down and wanting to buy the product or take the product or join the program? Objections are part of the process, and we'll get into why that's the case. This quotation underneath the title, Learn to Love the Objections, says, a lot of salespeople see a client's objections as rejection, but they shouldn't, okay? And then also it says here, take all belligerence and hostility out of your voice, and then you answer the objection. How you respond to these objections, not only with what you say and the logic that you utilize and what you teach with regards to overcome the objection, that makes a huge difference, but also the way that you say it and the respect that you give your contact during the time period of him or her raising objections, and generally an objection is just a request for more information. So having said that, we need to understand that the overcoming of objections is a normal part of selling. And having said that, then you realize that it's also a normal part of network marketing. Anytime you're out there and you share ideas just about anything with other people, there are going to be objections because there's a resistance to accepting other people's ideas. Your attitude with regards to handling objections is critically important. So you got to get prepared with good, solid, and intelligent answers. An objection is not an outright rejection of you, your opportunity, or your product. Most of the time, the prospect's objection or question is really an inquiry for more information. And so you've got to realize that it might not even be a real concern, but it's just something that some prospects do. Oftentimes it would be a real concern. However, realize that many times an objection is used to hide true feelings, and often we call them false objections that are just being thrown out there, and the prospect doesn't really want to articulate because doesn't feel that there's the appropriate trust level that has been developed, and they don't feel comfortable yet. The more comfortable that your prospect feels, and you can make them feel more comfortable through the process of give and take visiting, through listening and confirming that you're listening, and then you share information, and it's through that give and take of the listening that they become comfortable, they trust you, and then they are more likely to share with you the real objections or questions or challenges or obstacles that they might be dealing with regards to joining your particular opportunity at that time. By asking questions and listening carefully to the answers, you can often discover the true issue that's involved. Sometimes we must read between the lines and discover what the real issue is. Be aware that you can never be all things to all people. And some of the people out there that you visit with, they can never be satisfied. You need to do the best job that you can, listen carefully to determine if the objections are just the prospect's way of telling you no without really saying it. If you perceive that you're wasting your time, if that's your gut feeling, then move on to more suitable prospects. There are folks out there that realize that network marketers like to visit. There are folks out there that are lonely, that would like to visit, would like to engage people. And there are folks out there that continually take advantage of network marketers by leading them on and asking questions just so that they can sort of have a dance with people, so they can be involved and have something to do with people. You might think that that's silly for me to say that, but it's reality. It's true. It happens. I've had people tell me that. It's best to answer objections and questions that come your way with common sense persistence without becoming overbearing. Once again, the tone of your voice, the inflections that you give, if you're one-on-one in person, the body language that you give off to the other person when regards to the objection that comes your way, it tells a lot to your prospect. There's no need to annoy people just because they're asking objections. There's no need to get obnoxious with folks just because they are asking questions or challenging your idea. What you want to be doing is to be friendly. You want to be genuine with the people before and after any presentation is made or discussion, and certainly before and after any objection that is raised. I find that a lot of the process of overcome objections with many, many people who are relatively new to network marketing and some that are experienced in network marketing. In either case, it's a matter of teaching them the correct principles of the industry. Many times I find that we need to stand up for the right kinds of principles and the correct ways of doing the business. We need to teach people about the fact that if they're being thrown out a lot of propaganda and hype and hyperbole, that we need to tell them that it's not going to happen, that they can only go sponsor 2 people and make $10,000 a month in 90 days' time, that's just not going to happen. See, so many people that are in network marketing prey upon the emotion of the dreaming, the emotion of wanting to fulfill dreams, the desire for, I want something in my life that I haven't had before. And so the propaganda that is promoted certainly makes our job more difficult in many cases. Courtesy and respect are a must for professional networking, especially when it's clear that a prospect does not want to do the business with you. You need to be courteous with them and make sure that they know that you're a professional. When you've given a good presentation and there are objections and perhaps there is even a response that no, they don't want to get involved with you, don't take that personally. Don't be surprised that you are not going to be able to create a win-win relationship with all of the contacts that you talk to. Now, if you don't make a good presentation, then you should take it personally, and you better prepare yourself to be able to make good presentations. I just want to go over some helpful techniques that will help in overcoming objections. Number one, and I know that this is repetitive based on the comment that I made from Thomas S. Monson, number one is be prepared. Preparation is the key to overcoming objections with confidence. Be prepared or get prepared to answer objections with a sincere and direct and common sense response. Be thoroughly professional in handling your prospect's objection and the questions that they have, and once you are prepared, then you won't be intimidated by the objections and the questions that might be coming your way. You discover that they provide the opportunity for you to build rapport with prospects. And that rapport comes through the give and the take, the listening, the understanding of the question or the objection, and how you overcome it or teach it to the person so that there's some like thinking that's developed, and that can really help you build trust with other folks. And I've had so many people over the years that have been actually grateful that they have learned more about the industry along with learning about the business and why I love the business and why I'm sometimes embarrassed about what happens in the industry. Number two, anticipate objections. When you get some experience in presenting your opportunity and or in talking about the product, then you are going to hear some of the objections that come up, and you need to start to anticipate that people are going to have objections. To help alleviate the resistance from your prospects, anticipate the common objections and include the answers to them when you are making your initial presentation. See, if you repeatedly get the same objection, then you've got to evaluate your presentation. And you've got to build into that presentation a way that you overcome that objection when you're making the presentation so that you don't get it any longer. And that way you're not working from a negative point of view. Sometimes the prospect is putting you in the defensive when they are throwing out an objection that doesn't really need to be this. You can decrease the number of objections by anticipating and covering them in advance, and the resistance is lessened during your presentations. As you gain experience, you learn that the objections that you get are usually very similar to what you've heard before. And that's why you really develop skill in overcoming objections with the more prospecting that you do, the more follow-ups that you do, the more the give and the take that you do, and the more that you're visiting with prospects and they're inquiring about your opportunity and they're comparing it to another opportunity. And as you develop the experience, then you learn how to anticipate better and you know what to get prepared for. You can also incorporate proofs or facts into your presentation that will eliminate many of the objections before they get stated. You certainly will not eliminate every objection, and you shouldn't think that you will be able to do that, because prospects are going to have objections. They might have questions. Even if you are pre-selling, trying to overcome that objection, they still might come back because it might be a really emotional issue for them. You will obtain better sponsoring results as you anticipate, prepare, and practice in handling objections. You know, one of the ways that you can learn to anticipate the objections about a specific prospect is during that rapport building time that we talk about when we're first engaging with the prospect. Have you been in network marketing? What programs? What was your experience? And during that time period when they're talking about their experience, if they let you know that they certainly do not like front-end loading, you need to make a note of that on your pad of paper. If they talk about the fact that they were abandoned by a mentor. In fact, I read an email I was communicating with a lady, and she said that she had joined a program and had been abandoned by the mentor. Just wouldn't contact her anymore. And I just responded back, that's too bad. That should never happen to people. But when they are starting to bring these kinds of issues up, then those are things that are of concern to that prospect, and you need to build into your presentation once you start giving the presentation after the listening and the give and the take and the finding out about each other. Then you need to talk about the fact that we don't do front-end loading in our program. We're not like the other programs out there that will try to slam $1,000 worth or $600 worth or $5,000 worth of product and or books and tapes or other front-loaded types of items. We just don't do the business that way, and so we certainly would assure that contact or prospect that that's not the way that we do the business. Number 3 helpful technique and hint: clarify objections. It's good to clarify an objection to demonstrate understanding. Clarification is not acceptance. So when you're clarifying, you don't want to say that I agree with that. You're going to clarify that. You can appreciate and respect the objection, but that is different than agreement. If you agree with what they're saying, why would you want to overcome it? Clarification helps to eliminate argument. You really don't want to get caught into arguing with people. If you remain calm and try not to provoke the prospect, then you have much less resistance. To assist you to stay in good rapport, you can use phrases like, I respect what you're saying, or I appreciate your concern. If I understand you correctly, and following the restatement of the objection, use the word and rather than the words however or but, because however or but seems to build a wall of resistance, whereas and is a much softer transition word. You're trying to keep your prospect at ease and not put him or her on the defensive. The other day I was being prospected by a fellow who is involved in this recent chocolate deal. And he got my name from somebody that knew me and said that he had. He realized that I was in network marketing, and he was wondering if I had an interest in nutritional products. And I said, well, yes, I do. In fact, I have a new nutritional product program that I'm working. He said, well, have you ever thought that it would be great to have nutritious and delicious and healthy chocolate to eat? And I said, well, yeah, that would be marvelous, I suppose, but I would think that that would be a fad-type nutritional product. What program, what's the name of your program? He told me the name of the program, and I asked the next question, stating first, hey, listen, let's cut to the chase here, okay? And tell me, what's the compensation design that you're using to market this program? And he told me that it was a binary. And I said, you know, we can save both of us a lot of time if I just tell you straight out, I don't work binary programs. Now, that is an objection, okay? It's a statement of fact, and that's an objection that this fellow is not going to overcome. And he tried to. He tried to sell me all the different ways of why that they're not punitive, et cetera, and I just relied on my 20 years of experience, and he was asking, well, why would you say that? And I says, well, it's because of experience. And so, you know, you've got to read when somebody says that they just flat out would never work a compressed compensation plan, when they say they flat out would never work a nutritional product company, sometimes those are objections that you're not going to be able to overcome because they have decided that that's just a principle upon which they do the business. And that's the case with me with regards to working binary programs. This is helpful technique number 4, opinion versus fact. Listen to this carefully, okay? So much of what people hear, and especially in network marketing, is opinion. When a prospect throws an opinion at you, don't argue the point and share the facts. Okay? You don't argue the point and you share the facts. For example, when people say that network marketing is illegal pyramid, that's an opinion. That's their opinion. It's not correct because legitimate network marketing is not an illegal pyramid. There are money games, there are gifting programs, there are other illegal type of activities that become pyramid schemes, but a legitimate network marketing program, and certainly the ones that we work, are not illegal pyramids. You need to educate that prospect by sharing the facts. Many objections are incorrect opinions not based upon facts. They have listened to the propaganda. They read the hype. They read the misinformation in advertisements. Heavy-hitter distributors and others that have no principles are recruiting through hype and misinformation. And a lot of the prospects believe that those are facts. They are opinions, and in many cases they are incorrect opinions. Be aware that some opinions can't and won't be swayed. It's my opinion that I won't work binary programs. I'm not going to change that. This business is not for everyone, and the sooner that you recognize and accept that, the more effectively you can use your time. Sometimes you run into a prospect that might say, you know, our products are the best. Well, that's an opinion. I usually do not get involved in product discussions where I'm talking about ours is better than yours. There are certain products that I will visit about that I can make definite stands on. For example, if it's not consumable, then I'm not going to be involved with that kind of a product. If if it's a laundry ball or a laundry ring type product, if it's a gasoline additive pill or device, I'm not going to get involved with that. And I'm going to share my opinion with these folks that is so often based upon fact, okay, that these things just generally don't work, okay? But you got to be careful with that. But understand that when people are saying things to you, it's generally their opinion. And we can overcome and change many of those opinions as we teach. We use incorrect principles. Technique number 5, lots of objections. Often when contacts are giving you lots of objections, but more like questions, it's an indication that they're very interested. They're trying to support their decision. They've already made it to get involved, but they are going through the process of due diligence. So you've got to deal with the questions patiently and positively. And I think that you've got to learn how to develop discernment so that you can tell when the objections are just frivolous objections or whether they are meaningful questions and someone is really just trying to find out about the opportunity in depth. Maybe they're trying to find out more about the real benefits of what the products would be because it's a new, strange concept to them with many products. Technique or hint number 6, isolate objections. When you've successfully answered many objections, a good way to bring the objection process to a close is to isolate the prospect's objection. Ask something like, well, other than this objection, and you state that objection, is there anything else that is stopping you from getting started with XYZ opportunity? And so you try to isolate that objection. Another thing that you need to be careful of so that you don't get caught up in the lots of objections that come at you and your prospect doesn't really let you handle any one of them before they throw another one at you. You've got to slow those prospects down and say you're more than happy to answer all the questions and objections that they might throw at you, but let's take them one at a time. And oftentimes when you isolate them and you are able to visit on that one-on-one basis, then you find out that the person is just throwing out the objections because they really have no intention on doing the business with you anyway, and they don't have the heart to tell you no because they don't like to be rejected, and they feel that that no is a rejection of you. You should not feel that way. It's not a rejection of you. Number 7 hint or technique is unreasonable objections. Sometimes objections are simply unreasonable, and it's the contact's way of telling you no. You must recognize that and accept it. When someone insists that he or she loves the job, has all the money desired, and is too busy to do network marketing, he or she is probably right, and you've got to say next. You are not going to be able to sponsor every prospect that you talk to. If there's a chance to create a product user, that's terrific. But don't waste a lot of time with the folks that are just throwing out a lot of unreasonable objections. Sincere objections can be answered, but insincere or unreasonable objections, they cannot be answered. And here's a way to find out if the objection is unreasonable or not. Oftentimes you will identify it because it is illogical. It doesn't make sense. And particularly if you've already taught that person some principles and then they come back not using logic and make a big deal about an objection that you know that you've already covered, then you've got to accept the reality that you are wasting your time. Here's a great technique. Item number 8 simply says ask why. When a prospect, for example, tells you, I don't think I can do this, ask why. Before you try to overcome that objection, I don't think I can do this, why don't you find out why they don't think that they can do it? You want to find out what the prospect is really thinking about. And as they respond to your questions, Listen carefully to the answer for the clues to what additional information the prospect is seeking. If you don't understand an objection and want further explanation, simply ask, why do you feel that way? So the more that you can isolate that objection, the more you can find out what the reasoning behind it is, then the more effective you're going to be at being able to develop the experience and the techniques to overcome these question and objections that come your way. Let's shift gears here a minute, okay? In the majority of the material that I have studied on objections, if it's in-depth material at all, you almost always will read about and learn about what is called the feel, felt, found method. Now, this is very possibly a review for many of you folks, but I still like to bring it to your attention, particularly as one is learning how to visit and deal with objections and start to give presentations and get in the give and take of the presentations. The feel, felt, found method is often a very, very powerful way to deal with objections. It's a simple process to help you handle objections. By using the word feel, you are showing understanding of the prospect's feelings. You empathize and build rapport by expressing that you felt a similar way, and then following these expressions of understanding and rapport, then you introduce another point of view, or you're going to teach something new by using the word found. The method is simple and it's straightforward, and it can be used to answer any objection. Not that you use it, not that I use it on every objection, and maybe you, as you gain experience, you don't use those words, but in the beginning stages, it gives you a guideline so that you walk through the process of the understanding the rapport as you are trying to overcome objections. With practice, it really becomes a natural response to use the feel, felt, found method. Don't think that you must be restricted to using this approach, however. Here's a very simple example. I can appreciate how you feel because I felt the same way, and I found that, and then you give the example. Let's assume here that the objection that is coming from your prospect is, I'm just too busy. I just am too busy to do network marketing. Your response could be, I understand how you feel. When the business was presented to me, I felt the same way. What I found was that it's a matter of priorities. And after evaluating the many things for which I was using my time, I really decided to drop some of the activities that were not getting me to my real goals. And by eliminating a couple of the marginal activities, I came up with about 12 hours a week that I could use to build my own home-based business. So, as I said before, I found that it was really a matter of priorities, and I decided that I wanted to have extra income instead of going without some of the better things that I wanted for my family. So that is using feel, felt, found for a particular objection. Let's take another example. The objection is, network marketing is really not for me. The response could be, I appreciate and understand why you feel that way. Many people have felt that way, and in fact, I felt like that too. What I found after taking time to consider the facts is that network marketing as a business has tremendous potential. It's a legitimate business, provides me with home-based business income. It has changed so much in recent years that it has become very distributor-friendly, and significant money can be earned doing it part-time in the right program. And that's why I would like you to consider this information that I'm sharing with you. I've also found that my understanding of the industry of network marketing versus what the business of network marketing has to offer really changed my attitude with regards to network marketing being for me. And so that's the feel, felt, found method. And as you are identifying your 15 or 20 objections that you want to learn to overcome, I think it's always good in terms of the initial stages or the initial responses that you utilize to overcome the objection, start your thinking process using the feel, felt, found method. And then with objections, I have always found that it's a great idea, and it makes a lot of common sense to have 2 or 3 or 5 different ways to overcome an objection. Here's a simple guide to overcoming objections. I've got about 7 points written down here. Number 1, listen carefully and don't interrupt or assume that you know what the prospect will say. You know, I make a mistake from time to time when I am a little bit lax in terms of my listening skills, and I hear the beginning of a phrase that I think is going to be an objection, okay? I assume that this is what the prospect is going to say, and then I interrupt and I start to answer the objection only to find out that that was really not the objection. So the listening carefully part and not interrupting until you have a real solid grasp on what that objection is really important. When you are listening and identifying what the objection is, I want to also encourage you to try to listen and find out why they have the objection. Because as you teach them the correct principle, if you can also address the why issue of the objection and the why of your correct principle that you are teaching, then you'll have much more success in actually getting an emotional commitment to the principle that you are teaching. Number 2, realize that the prospect's objection is always a question or an inquiry for more information. And now, always is strong words there, okay? If you have a sincere prospect, then yes, always a request for information. If the prospect is not sincere, then there are often unreasonable objections, as we talked about earlier. Never argue with the prospect. Arguing does not build relationships. You know, I found myself the other day when I was talking to this fellow who was promoting the chocolate program, the binary chocolate program. I was trying to help him understand compensation plans of the industry and to also understand how binary programs work for part-time people, particularly in light of the power leg that is built, and if you're not in the power leg. At one point in time, even though I was trying to calmly teach about my experience and about how binaries work, he had constant objections to the principles that I was teaching. And I said, hey, listen, Eric, I don't want to argue with you, and I'm not going to argue with you. And so you're sold on this binary concept, and so let's just not waste our time in me trying to teach you from my experience in terms of how these things work out. Why don't you give me a call back in 6 to 8 months, and let's see where you are, and let's see if you've experienced yet the frustration that is going to come by virtue of the fact that your part-time people that you're attracting to the program are not going to be able to make money in this program. And hey, I moved on. I was done. I couldn't spend any more time with him. Number 4 in the simple guides to overcoming objections. Repeat the objection to make sure you clearly understand what the prospect is really saying. Remember, it's better to clarify the objection and not agree with it. Okay? And that "and" is a strong word to utilize. A good way to do that is using the feel, felt, found method, as we talked about. Also, the following statements are helpful. If I understand what you are saying, you are concerned about. If I understand what you're saying, you are concerned about. Or, I appreciate your concern of. I appreciate your concern of. Proper clarification of an objection demonstrates understanding and usually helps the prospect to listen more carefully to your response. I find that it certainly helps me to really understand and comprehend what the objection is all about. Number 5, try not to make the prospect feel defensive by attacking the objection. Be direct in answering the objection and be as brief as possible. Some objections you cannot answer on a brief basis, and you need to discern the difference between the two. Number 6, after you've completed your response, find out how the prospect feels about your answer before you continue. I call this doing little mini closes, okay? A couple of questions to help you confirm how the prospect feels about what you have taught and how you've answered the objection would be, hey, does this make sense to you? Gee, does that address your question? How do you feel about that? Would you agree with this? These are mini closing statements, so you're finding out if you have in fact overcome or answered the question or the objection satisfactorily, or if there's still resistance. In my dealing with the binary issue the other day with my the fellow who was trying to prospect me, I actually taught the 20 Club concept and showed him how brutal the majority of the compensation plans of the industry are. He had brought up the company Mirinda, the Tahitian Noni company, TNI, and we know that the 20 Club yields $84 on $2,000 of volume, 1% first level and 5 on the second. And then I demonstrated that with a 20 Club that was hundreds of dollars, and the comparison was stark, and he could readily see that. And he admitted to that because it made sense to him. He's a financial planner, and so he could not cop out not understanding the issues. And so you are making many closes, even though you might make a point and show what their deficiency is in their thought process. Many times it doesn't do any good if they are actively involved in a program and, hey, I told him straight out I was not going to reverse prospect him, and so I guess we had nothing more to talk about. He liked how I handled that and appreciated the fact that I was not going to try to reverse prospect him. I think that's a waste of time in most cases unless they start to inquire about why your program can pay out such a high bonus dollar on $2,000 of volume. Number 7, after handling an objection, get back on track and provide more information or close whatever the appropriate response would be. Way too many people allow the contact to take over the interview or the presentation by asking objection after objection after objection. Not that we eliminate all objections, but we've got to get back on track with the way that we want to present our opportunity so that we do share appropriate information with them. That's in fact why I love the website that has been put together by distributor support organizations that have done a good job of this, because you can actually make the presentation using the website because the company essential element is there, the product essential element is there, the compensation is described, and then there's the support link. And by utilizing that, you can share so many facts with them that will support why you like the company or why you like the product or why the compensation plan is so powerful, why you have such a strong feeling for the support organization that you're a part of. The website is a great way to make presentations over the telephone. They have a computer hookup. That's an ideal to be talking to somebody because they can take a look at the computer. Make no mistake about it, folks. So often the computer validates what you're talking about because people are seeing that on a website, on the computer, and it just has a lot more punch and power to it. I particularly have found that to be the case when I've used the comparison calculator in circumstances where the prospect takes a look at the comparison calculator, they understand the 20 Club concept, they take a look at the various companies, and they start to put companies that they're acquainted with in there and find out that the payout on that 20 Club would be $100 or 84 or 130, and wow, then they start to shake their head, and because they're seeing it so quickly calculated for them, and the process is done by a computer, it just adds the validity to it and the credibility to it. So it's a very powerful tool, and that's why certainly we've included it on the website. Use your own ingenuity and initiative to handle objections and questions effectively. This is another area where your ingenuity comes into play. The other place in network marketing that I feel that your creativity should be able to work at the ultimate level is in the contacting and in the prospecting arena. You have just simply got to be as creative as possible in coming up with the people that you're going to contact, and also how you're going to contact some of those people in various circumstances, if they're from the cold market 3-foot arena, and also great creativity when you are talking to folks that you know, but in those casual circumstances that are not networking oriented, you're able to address the issues and bring up the ideas. That happened to me again the other evening with another of my warm market contacts. We were in a situation where we had been to a meeting together, and there were some refreshments served at the close of the meeting. Health issues came to the forefront, and it was a perfect opportunity to bring up the specific product that I have to offer. They had not heard of that, and instead of going on with it at that point in time, I said, would you like to consider some information? And yes was her response, and I says, great, I'll get this to you. I'll also direct you to our website so that you can further research it. And she says, oh, that's great because I like the internet. And so look at how this was set up, and I get the information to her, and now she's in the process of evaluation. You have to use the creativity to contact people, as well as your own ingenuity to handle the objections that are raised effectively. A little practice will greatly increase your ability and your results in handling and overcoming objections. The responses to objections and questions that follow the setup will have a lot to do with your success in sponsoring people. If you have difficulty with objections and you're challenged by them, don't get discouraged with your ability. These ideas may be new to you. You need to stay with it. You need to practice the methods, practicing using different answers. You can certainly brainstorm on conference calls with upline leaders. You can certainly brainstorm with your individual sponsor or upline mentor about certain objections that you're having difficulty with, and so that you get the ideas of how to overcome them. You want to jot them down. You want to make a notebook of the top 15 objections, more if you want to, and write down the various responses. You can have that notebook by you so that when you encounter that objection during a presentation, you can flip to the objection. Particularly when you're on the telephone, that's a great technique because the people won't know that you are referring to notes. I have some things written on my bulletin board that's in front of my desk where I do my telephone work that are tidbits of information that remind me of things that are useful in the presentation process, in the overcoming of objections, certain facts that I want to remember, and I write it down until I own it. And then once I own it, once I've used it often enough that I am able to take it off the bulletin board, then I usually have other things to take the place. You need to, following conversations and presentations and follow-up visits with your prospects, you should evaluate your performance. You can identify the strengths, what you have done well. Lots of times I find that I get responses just off the top of my head to certain objections that come my way, and I want to make sure I write them down so I don't forget them. Or I identify weaknesses that I had, that I was not able to handle a certain objection. Maybe a question was raised, and I've got to find out what the answer would be. So you need to do that too, so that you can improve your results as you overcome objections. You know, practice improves performance and, importantly, results. And I always like the idea that perfect practice makes perfect performance. And we can do that in our network marketing business. I had to get a drink of water here, folks, and I think that rather than moving on to some of the typical objections, we'll save that for July the 6th. I've got several here. Like I've got one right here. Is this a pyramid scheme? Pyramids are illegal. Gee, this sounds too good to be true. If network marketing were so wonderful, why aren't more people involved? Is this selling? Do I have to sell? I can't sell anything. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not interested. I want to think about it. I don't think I can afford it. I just don't have the money. And I know you guys are sitting there thinking, well, yeah, I hear those objections all the time. Well, tune in on July the 6th. We're going to handle some of these objections with 2 or 3 or 5 different responses on how to overcome them. And so I think that that will be an engaging opportunity for us to increase our ability in handling objections. What I'd like to do tonight is we'll open the lines up and see if folks have any comments that we might participate in together to improve our capabilities of handling objections.
Presentation mode is now disabled.
David.
Hello, are people out there?
David, this is Barry McLeod.
Hi, Barry. It's great to have you on our Success University call tonight.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. You know, I've been in sales my entire life, and when you're in sales, you go to a lot of different sales schools, and they teach you how to be salesmen. But, you know, where does the network marketer go to learn how to better equip his skills and skill level and the ability to communicate with people in sales ability and things of that nature? I take my hat off to for this university and the skill techniques that somebody can go and tune into this university every week and enhance their skills, because I mean, think about it. I don't know anywhere else out there that a network marketer can go do that unless they want to pay big bucks to have one of these supposed experts teach them that. So I think this, you know, what is taught in these universities are tremendous, and I take my hat off to you for forming that concept where people can come here and learn how to enhance their skills. Because if they don't enhance their skills, they're going to get left behind.
Well, you know, Barry, I appreciate your comments there. And one thing I would like to say with regards to network marketers learning how to overcome objections, and this can apply to a lot of part-time participants out there that I love dearly and would really like to help them be financially successful, is that the ongoing propaganda of the industry, and I know that you have tremendous experience with and recognize this, the ongoing propaganda of the industry is network marketing is not selling. This is just sharing. And so when they say that, then automatically they are losing a lot of pizzazz with regards to ideas about prospecting, because prospecting is selling. And they lose a lot of pizzazz about how to overcome objections, because people perceive that if you have to overcome objections, then it's really more selling than just sharing. And so lots of times, like I keep talking about, like I did tonight, Barry, we teach correct principles. And when you build on those correct principles, then the skill level can increase because you accept the reality of what is happening in the business of network marketing. And I don't mind that people call this sharing. That's great. It is sharing. Just don't say it's not selling. And then you can see the difference there, because once you realize and will accept the fact that this is selling, then you will want to learn how to prospect more effectively. You will want to learn how to qualify. See, qualify is another really strong selling term. Now, we use that all the time in network marketing. Other people use it all the time. Even those that lie to you and say that this is not selling, they talk about prospect lists, they talk about qualifying, and they talk about objections. But see, when you really realize what the correct principle is regarding what we're doing out there, then you accept it, you recognize I can do this, and what you've pointed out, Barry, which I appreciate, is that, wow, we are receiving skill training here to make us more effective. I mean, isn't that how... Anybody else have a comment they'd like to throw at us here?
Good evening, David. This is Larry up in Montana.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. I really appreciated a point in particular that you covered. You know, in anticipation of tonight's call, I went and reviewed the section on overcoming objections in Myers-Barnes' book, Closing Strong. And he had mentioned in there the idea of the fact that many objections are things that you can anticipate and to build those responses into your presentation. But I remember reading that and thinking, my gosh, if you tried to anticipate every possible objection and cover those in advance with every prospect you spoke to, it could become overwhelming. So I really appreciated a very practical tip when you spoke about identifying potential objections during the rapport building phase of the call, and then being able to work those appropriate responses into your presentation on the fly as you go. The light really went on for me right there. I mean, that's great stuff. That's why these calls are so fantastic, because you get those inspired moments that come from experience, the kind of things you can get a lot of great framework from books and study materials, but boy, it's that kind of practical insight that, for me, really makes this stuff come alive. And I just wanted to let you know I really appreciate it. I think that's a great point. That really brought me to understanding on that.
Well, thank you. And I want to address what you've talked about during that rapport building time, okay? You see, we talk lots of times about a hot button. What's the hot button? What's going to turn the person on to really wanting to participate in our program or like the product? What's the hot button that's going to get their attention? Well, during that rapport building time, and I guess we could call this like a negative hot button, okay? A turn-off button, okay? And when I hear the turn-off things that the prospect is telling me about the experience they've had in network marketing, I want to identify those just as much as I want to identify the hot buttons that are going to turn them on. Because then I can incorporate into my presentation in anticipation of negativity, okay? I'm going to overcome those things by, we don't do the business that way. Here's what we have as training that I'm certainly, you've never experienced this before with any distributor support organization. What we like to talk about is what we refer to as institutional support. I wouldn't support, do you know what institutional support is?
What?
And that person would say, well, no, what's that? And then when they learn about the conference calls that are established and set up and take place on a weekly 4 or 5 day basis or whatever comes from your particular group, they see a website that's got getting started material and websites that have generic training about the business and network marketing. Then they start to understand what the concept of institutional support is and overcomes that, well, gee, my mentor left me hanging. And then the hot button side of that is they're real strong into health and vitality. They want to have nutritional products. And so I like how you identified the anticipation, the recognize what the objection might be. You know, you made reference to Myers-Barnes' book, and he's got a great chapter there, okay? And I was looking at that also tonight, and he has what he calls a 6-step method for overcoming objections. Number 1, hear the objection out. Well, we talked about that. Number 2, repeat the objection back to the prospect. Well, we talked about that. Number 3, question the objection. Remember, the first objections you hear may be masking a larger objection, and so you ask for elaboration. That's what Myers says. And so he's just trying to teach us question the objection by identifying the fact that often there are false objections, that it's not the real underlying reason that the person is a little bit skittish about getting involved. Number 4, answer the objection with your pre-planned response. Isn't that interesting? Pre-planned response. Number 5, confirm that the objection does not block the sale. And then I just absolutely love number 6. Remember, Myers-Barnes wrote the book Closing Strong, and number 6 says close. Now, you either close the sale, you either close the deal on becoming a distributor, or you close once again, and I call that a mini close. You close the issue of that objection. Do you agree with this? Now can you understand? Do you have a problem with this? Can you accept that? And then you're able to move on and get off that objection. But if you never close with regards to that specific objection, then they bring up another objection, but they always come back and fall back to the previous one because you didn't close it. You didn't get it over with. So that was a great observation you made there, Larry, and in true form, I guess I always run off at the mouth when I get excited about observations that are made. Anybody else have a comment here before we wrap up tonight? You know, we really appreciate your participation in our Network Marketing Success University.
Your conference.
And so, good for you for being here. You know, I guess I'm going to close up tonight. Haven't done this for a while. Chuck Swindoll has written some great stuff. I mentioned that attitude was such an important part of overcoming objections, and I've got a piece here that Chuck wrote with regards to attitude. He calls it attitude. And he says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing that we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. Now, I obviously think that facts are important. I think that skills are important. So does Barry. So does Larry. Attitude in how you utilize the skills and the facts and the information and the program that you have to offer, the products that you have to offer, your attitude sometimes makes all the difference in the world in how you use the facts and the skills that you go forward with. You know, we've seen in network marketing remarkable stories about how people have lifted themselves up out of poverty, how they grabbed a hold of the opportunity. They loved the product. They went forward. Nothing could stop them because they had the attitude that it was time for them to change their life, and they knew that they could do it with the network marketing opportunity better than they could do it anywhere else. And if you will evaluate it, folks, that is so true today for so many people that are in their 50s and 55 and 60s, that the opportunities for really getting tremendous income, six-figure incomes per year are so limited because of the discrimination against age and often against the education that people have, and yet they're fully skilled to do the work. That doesn't have to hold us back in network marketing. And so many people have the very same opportunity that you do, and they choose not to do anything with it. And yet others completely change their lives and elevate this to a lifestyle life that they can live as opposed to just getting by. You change your attitude, develop your skills, and take the facts and run with it in your program, and you can have that lifestyle that you desire. Particularly if you're involved in helping part-time people be successful and you have a nutritional product and a compressed compensation plan. Then you can rock and roll with this thing. Hey, this is David Nelson. Let me remind you once again that on the 29th of June, this university will not be taking place because of the Independence Day holiday for the United States. And we will resume our overcoming objection topic on the 6th of July. Thanks for being here tonight, and I hope you have a great evening. Thanks, folks, and good night.